Okay, let's go back. So really, what we're seeing now is it's still a matter of your screening interviews being virtual. And so if you ever have had problems with your interviewing when it's online, you want to still work on those skills because it is still, I would probably say about 80 to 90% of employers are still using that for their screening. And certainly with the largest corporate law firms, we haven't seen any changes in that. One thing that's really different about the fall OCI program, which actually takes place in the summer completely, so don't mind the label, is that it really exclusively focuses in on the largest corporate law firms around the country. And these are firms that, they are doing corporate and business law, commercial transactions, IP for big corporations, high stakes litigation. They have over, 500 members or better, could be in the thousands. They may even have a global presence. They certainly have multiple offices around the country. So that's what I'm referring to when I say large corporate firms. And so those are the type of firms that will participate. The OCI program in the fall is also known for large government agencies. And so these could be a U.S. Attorney's Office or Department of Justice, both federal and state. It could be even a bigger district attorney's office, such as in Philadelphia. It could be a federal agency through an honors program, a summer honors program, or a postgraduate honors program. But regardless, they think scale, big, massive offices, systematic recruiting, hiring probably more than one or two summer associates or interns. The hiring that they're going to be doing this summer is going to be for 2025 summer associate positions and 2025 postgraduate attorney positions. So if you're a first or second year, then it would be for a summer associate position. If you're in your second year now, but will be in your third or fourth year in the fall, then it will be for after graduation. I will say this right from the start, that 99% of OCI participants from the firm side, those large corporate side, will probably be seeking summer associates. And there's a reason for that. It's just not because they don't like students who are graduating. It's because they are in the process of filling out their class of postgraduate attorneys from their summer associate class. So whoever's successful this summer through OCI will have the opportunity to get an offer, and then that offer would be for after graduation. So when it comes to the OCI hiring this fall or in this summer period, they may not have as many slots open. Okay, so just wanted to let you know that. And you should know that if you are looking for summer or postgraduate employment, that OCI is only one method of finding employment. So we want you not to focus exclusively to OCI. We are making a special orientation about it now because it is very time sensitive. There are lots of deadlines to think about. And you do have to be on top of your game to kind of get in there when they're ready to go, because things move quickly. But all that said, if you do go through OCI and you find yourself not getting an offer at the end of it, do not despair. Do not think it's the end of the world. of course, we want to debrief, everything with you that happened during the process and help you to make any improvements that may be necessary. But you will have many, many other opportunities to find that summer work and also postgraduate position that you may be looking for. So if you don't hear anything else I'm saying today, one thing I do want you to know is that for this fall OCI, the first session, right? So OCI is going to be divided into sessions, which is sort of dates, date A to date B. And the first session is going to start for you in terms of when you can apply on June 17th at 12 p.m. If you've gone through OCI in the spring, you realize there are sort of these opening dates. And so for the summer OCI, it's June 17th. And you're going to be given, a little less than 10 days to apply to the employers that we have that are already in our session and participating in session 1. Last year when we opened, I think it was something like 33 employers there. We've already got about 13, so we may come in a little higher than that. So it's just hard to know at this point. But it's going to be a mixture of employers who are wanting to see you through means of a virtual pre-screening interview, or they may be collecting your resume and then they will screen it on their own to find out whether or not they're going to invite you in. The very first day of Delaware Law School OCI virtual interviews, I'm being very specific to say that these are our jumping off dates. There may be hiring going on before this. You want to be mindful of. I'll talk about that in the next screen. But it is July 24th. And that's a week earlier than we did it last year. These deadlines that we're setting are in conjunction with employers, so they are fixed. When the session is open, it's open. When it's closed, it's closed. If you are hiring, applying through our portal, it'll literally shut down and you won't be able to see a button to apply after those dates. I've known students who maybe have applied on their own and gotten the attention of the employer that way. And then the employer says, oh, this person is great. Can you add the person to our schedule? If you can avoid doing that, please do. There's a lot of moving targets during the fall OCI for us. And so it just is one extra level of complexity that if we can avoid it, it would be great. I'd love it if you would just apply during the time frame that you see there's given for that particular employer. Now, if you have a contact and the contact is saying, hey, get the resume in now, they're doing something early, then by all means, do what you need to do. All right. So again, timing matters, and we are seeing a very different change in OCI that hasn't been happening, I guess, in 10 years ago. I guess during the pandemic and then afterwards, or maybe even before the pandemic, we saw a lot of employers engage in pre-recruiting, which, as you see here, is defined by many organizations and NALP as the practice of law firms recruiting students for summer positions prior to the law school's official on-campus interviewing program. So that means that there are some employers who are already going into the hiring market for these summer 2025 positions. And largely they're doing them at top 25 schools in the country and coordinating with them. But some of them are actually also opening it up to other schools as well. You should have received from Lauren Damiano in our office an email late last week in which she was trying to identify those employers that we know of who are doing some early pre-recruiting. if you don't have the email, just let me know. We can resend it to you. But it was late last week, maybe even Thursday or Friday, and we have some in our Simplicity who have reached out to us, and we also know of others because they are either listing it on their websites, and we've gone to those websites to try to figure out what their process is. In addition, this year, because of the prevalence of this practice, the Greater Philadelphia Area Law School Consortium, I am told, was trying to do a survey of their members. I'm sorry, not GPALs. It was the Legal Recruiters of Philadelphia, LRAP. And they are trying to assess how many of their members, which are the largest corporate firms in the Philadelphia area, how many of their members are engaging in pre-recruiting practices. I'm told they're going to share that information with the local law schools. And if we get that information, you, of course, will have it as well, just to give a sort of more information of whether you need to move more quickly than what I'm telling you now. If I were in your position, I probably would assess, using some of the resources I'm going to share with you, which would be my top employers where I would want to apply based on, your research and maybe contacts you may have or presence of our alumni, and reach out to them in the sense of look at their website, see if they're in their campus, if in their summer recruiting pages, if they're already talking about pre-recruiting practices or what you may be able to do early. I've noticed that some of the employers have already outlined that there. So this might be a practice for you. The reason why I'm putting a big emphasis on that is because of this statistic here in the bullet point, where they found through a survey, the National Association for Law Placement, that in 2023, last hiring cycle, a little less than half of all summer associate positions came prior to the law school's formal interviewing program. That's a huge jump from even the year prior to that. So it says to me that employers are being a little bit more competitive. They're trying to get ahead of the hiring, and they're still going to always be on campus, but they're seeing the efficiencies of hiring early, and they're doing it at a higher rate. So I don't want you guys to be caught flat-footed with that. We're putting it as early as we can because we want to make sure that we're competitive with the other area law schools that are also moved up a week or so in their hiring, in their OCI programs. But all that to say, you have this information, and if you have more questions about it, we'd love to talk one-on-one with you in a meeting about how you can get your materials ready earlier for any pre-recruiting you might want to take advantage of. Some of the things that you can do now would be to learn a little bit about the employers who are in the world of OCI during the fall. And the very best resource that I can think of is this NALP directory, www.nalpdirectory.com. It's a resource where you can get a lot of demographic information about the firm. It will tell you where they are, whether or not they're hiring, what their salary is, how many billable hours they demand from attorneys, who the contact would be for summer associate hiring. And the reason why this is important is because while we have a decent amount of employers that will participate through our OCI program, there are going to be way more employers that are going to either just want you to apply on your own, or they're going to be doing resume collection and something a little bit less involved with the school. Doesn't mean that they are not hiring, but it's just they can't, in terms of resources, go to every single school. And so we want you to know that there's a large net that you can cast. And I say within reason because we don't want you to apply to places that you would absolutely not consider working after graduation. Remember, this is the kind of employer where if you work there during the summer and do a good job, they may very well give you an offer for after graduation. So we want there to be some alignment with your geographic goals, with your practice goals, with where you see yourself, at least in the next 5 years. But within that, there's a lot of opportunity for you to apply and cast a wide net. Obviously, employer websites are great. Martindale.com continues to be a great resource for finding where our graduates have worked when it comes to these big corporate spaces. And so I think that I would, if I were you, start with the NALP directory of legal employers, get a small snapshot of the target firms that you're interested in, and then maybe go over to martindale.com and filter for Philadelphia or whatever city, law firms near Philadelphia or in Philadelphia, and use their filters to search for our graduates by law school. You can do that. It just gives you a little extra information. Maybe it would encourage you to apply to one employer versus another. And so that's something that we always say you should take advantage of doing. Other things that you can be doing right now is you're going to need, I don't have it on here, but it occurs to me there's going to be a lot of reasons why you might need a professor's either letter of recommendation or just be able to add a professor's name on your list of references. Usually you don't have to give your list of references if you're applying on your own, but there may be sometimes during the OCI, if you're applying through either our portal on Simplicity or through an employer's portal on their website, where they may want you to upload a list of references. Very, very rarely will a law firm want you to include a letter of recommendation. So before you go asking former employers or your professor to give you that letter, make sure that you at least have their okay to add their contact information, email, phone number on a separate reference sheet that you might be able to upload to Simplicity as one of the documents there. If you haven't ever drafted or a really good cover letter, now's the time to get some help with that. These are the types of employers who really look at all of your writing documents as mini writing samples. So you want to make sure that you have a cover letter that really incorporates the work that you've done over the last year, maybe the last 2 years, and that you're being succinct and that you're focused in on the question that I always say that you need to answer in every cover letter. Why should they hire you? What are the 2 or 3 things that would make you someone that would hit the ground running, add value in a summer program? And you look at your skill set, you look at the things that you can prove, that you have evidence of, not just that you'd like to write, but maybe you've gotten a certain grade over a B+ in your legal methods classes, or you were an English major, or you've worked for an employer where there was a significant amount of writing, or had classes in college and or law school where you had to prepare a lot of written documents. So these are the kinds of things. I won't go too much into detail on cover letter. We can talk about that if you have those kinds of questions afterwards, but these are the types of things you really want to do a good job on. Similarly, your writing sample. What I've noticed is, particularly when it comes to this fast turnaround that we're asking you to do in June, you might be applying to a place where you want to use your appellate brief. You think that's going to be your best writing. You looked at your grade and you say, oh, I've done a great job. Make sure you have access to faculty so that you can get a edited version of your document, or at least have a sense from them what changes need to be made. And by all means, don't ever upload something that you haven't at least looked at yourself again for just basic typos or spelling errors or grammar errors if you can't get to doing a full substantive edit if that's needed. It's going to be really important to have that writing sample be strong. So if you have a graded writing sample from first semester, say, for example, if you're first year, and those grades are in, and you have the copy of that, but you think you've done better in your first semester than your second semester, there's nothing saying that you have to use your appellate brief. You can use whatever you think is your strongest piece of writing whenever you've prepared it, okay? And then lastly here for things that you should do is, if you haven't already scheduled a mock interview, we really recommend that you do so. That's just where you meet with one of us and we sit down for maybe 20 or 30 minutes and ask questions of you that we think will prompt you to talk about yourself, to refine your pitch that you're making to the employer about your suitability for a summer associate position or an internship position. And also for you to get comfortable talking about yourself, which can be, daunting experience if you haven't done a lot of interviewing. It's really just about practice. I can't say that people come out of the gate really knowing how to do it well, but after a while, you get used to understanding what there is about your resume to talk about. What are the talking points? And so part of the mock interview process, even going back to the resume preparation process, is for you to be understanding, okay, I'm going to talk about this point from my resume and maybe not that point. And so that's a little bit about how you refine your interviewing skills, is really knowing what to say and what not to say. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And then I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions from you, either about what your situation was when you went through OCI in the spring, you had a question about that, or you're looking forward to the fall and you're a little bit curious about how that might be different. So does anyone have a question? You could throw it in the chat if you'd like as well. Okay.
I have one
Yeah,
question.
Fiona.
If you are going to be doing a clerkship after graduation, sh- is it okay to still for and then maybe during the interview, let them know that you're doing a clerkship, but you're interested in them after the
Yeah.
term is over? Is it okay to do that, or should you just not apply to
No,
a
I think
firm
you should apply. There's
until
definitely
done?
so the question is, if you know that after graduation you are going to be doing a clerkship, should you go through OCI at all? So I'll say yes, and then maybe. So the yes definitely is a function of what I've seen as a practice with some employers, a lot of the large corporate employers, where they may say, if they like you as a candidate, okay, we're going to give you an offer for a year after your clerkship. Now, the maybe is, I've seen that done a lot more for an appellate level clerkship as opposed to a state local level trial level clerkship.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean they won't do it for another clerkship that falls in the latter category? No. And if any, and it's always worth it for you to go in there and ask that question, especially if they're picking you for the screening interview. That means there's some interest in speaking with you, together. So it's worth exploring, but I want to just make sure that you know that there might not be an opportunity depending on the level of clerkship. And sometimes you can see that from their website. They may say, during their hiring cycles, that we're hiring off of judicial clerkships. Like they may be actually reserving spaces for people who are in clerkships now and wanting to get that, that grand training that you get from working from a judge. And they might already explicitly be saying that on their website. So do a little research before you apply. But if nothing is coming through, it may be also to a question that you can ask directly of the recruiter before applying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good. That was a good question. Any other questions? So one of the things that I hear a lot is, should I apply to just the city? I don't know where I want to work, right? So should I apply to an organization in a city in New York or in DC or someplace outside of our tri-state area? Or I'm not sure I want to be in Delaware. It looks like you have a lot of Delaware firms. Should I even apply to a Delaware firm? I get that question a lot. And my response is give a good thought this before you go through OCI as to what are some of your criteria for being what state you want to be after graduation, right? So if you have family ties and that every Sunday you're with family and that it's a close-knit family and that's the way you want to live your life, or your friend group is basically here, or you have a spouse or a partner and you want to maintain, you don't want to engage in a long distance relationship. If you have these really personal reasons, give a thought to how your job search impacts that. Truth be told, most people don't work necessarily really close to where they live once you start getting out into practice. I think it's at least it's not what I've seen. I've certainly, when I first started working this job, I lived in Philadelphia and commuted from Philadelphia all the way down to Wilmington and didn't even have a car at the time. Not advisable. But people do what they need to do when they're switching jobs, when they're starting out. So I'm telling you to think about these things when you're making your selections, but be broad, be open to the fact that you may have to go out a little bit outside of your comfort zone to get the job that you really want, and that it will be worth it. Something that I also say to do is ask the question 10, 20 years down the road, where would you want to be? So now you're more midway through your career and you're settling in and you're certainly past, if you're in a firm situation, partner status there. Where would you want that to be? These could start to spark your thought patterns on what's the range of employers that makes sense for me. And also, of course, what do you want to do? Who do you want to impact? What kinds of clients do you want to have? What kind of skills do you want to be using more often than not? This is the kind of self-assessment I think that you have to engage in before any job search, but particularly if this is you're going into your last year, and particularly for a job search like this one, where being successful in a summer position could mean you're getting an offer for postgraduate. So it's linked to that decision a little bit more than maybe another summer internship might. So those are some things that I wanted to share with you. Does anyone have any questions on how to apply using Simplicity? Okay. All right. Well, those are the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of our program. The main thing that I want you to know is, one thing I didn't say, when you go on Simplicity this June, first of all, we're going to be connecting with you significantly over the summer. So once you finish your last class, do not stop looking at your school email. It's the only way that we'll be communicating to you about deadlines, changes, other opportunities like job fairs that are also going to be taking place in the summertime as well for the summer of 2025. So we will be sending you emails in which we entitle them Career Connection. And that is your cue, definitely, that there's going to be some serious job opportunities, deadlines in there for you. When we talk about launching a complete job search, I'm expecting that this June won't be the first time you've ever looked at your job search for next summer. What information I'm giving you now is giving you enough to really start this process for the pre-recruiting, if you're interested in that. And also for those employers that are not going to be participating in our job OCI, where you're going to have to apply on your own. Those employers are not going to have dates that necessarily jive with the ones that I just gave you. You know, it could be a firm that they want to see your applications not June 17th to 26th, but after. Some of the firms, you know, that are bigger, but not necessarily the biggest, may not come in early in June. They may be still looking later in July or early August. So be open throughout the whole OCI season, which in our view starts as early as June. And we run our OCI program all the way through September 30th. So that gives you an opportunity to see that the first group of employers that are going to come in through OCI are going to be the biggest of those firms. We've already gotten a lot of their dates already, and they are going to be off to the races. There's going to be another group that maybe is not going to move as fast. They may have some dates in early August or even late August, around the time you might be coming back to school. So this is how you have to manage your time and your attention span when you're talking about OCI periods. They tend to be long, drawn out, and some of them employers can come in unexpected times. But that's why I'm giving you this heads up on that. Definitely, if you are interested in some of the bigger government employers or judicial clerkships that might be coming through, that will probably not be in June. That will usually be more in that August to September or even time frame, including the military. They tend to be later. So just understanding that the whole universe of a fall OCI could include employers that have very different hiring cultures, and you want to be sort of attuned to that as well. Interviewing prep. Know that with the biggest of corporate firms, the screening interview is not the end of the process. If you make it past the screening interview, then you'll be invited to what's called a second interview or a callback interview. Get to know that terminology. All that means is that you'll then probably be invited to go to the employers on site to their firm. And at that time, you may be meeting with multiple employers. You may be meeting with multiple employers at that time who are going to be asking you 20 minutes at a time. It wouldn't be uncommon for you to be meeting with 6 or 7 attorneys back to back, maybe a lunch in between, really getting a sense of who all are the people who work there, and they're trying to get a real sense of whether you would have a good fit. Chances are they really understand that you know, have all of the basics that they want, but this is where the fit factor comes in. So that callback interview is really important and is crucial for you getting that last offer. So again, can't speak enough about the mock interview process at some point during OCI, so that you make sure that when you're having either the screening or the multiple interviews in person, that you're doing the best job that you can. All right. So with that, I think that's the end of our presentation for this evening. If you have any other questions, you can email me at ljruffin@widener.edu or Lauren at lcdamiano@widener.edu. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that may come up after it. I thank you for your attention and hope that you are all very successful during this upcoming fall OCI recruiting season. Have a wonderful evening.